My name is Alice Hanov, and welcome back to my YouTube channel where we talk about all manner of bookish things, and on Mondays specifically talk about the world of Torian and the mythology behind my upcoming debut novel, The Head, the Heart, and the Heir, which is a YA fantasy series that will be spanning a minimum of 6 or 7 books. So, as I mentioned previously, we're going through the different kingdoms in the world of Torian, which is my magical world that I have made up for my book series. Last week we talked about the kingdom of Warren, which is the kingdom where my main protagonist, Alex, is from, or Princess Elizabeth if you prefer. Today we're going to be talking about the kingdom of Datten. Datten and Warren have been allies for centuries, and King Emeric of Datten and King Edward of Warren are very good friends and actually are godparents to each other's children. So the kingdoms have been close for many, many years, to the point that typically one of the kings in one of the kingdoms is always a senior king, as in they've had the title of king for a good amount of time, when the other kingdom's king comes into the title and is still fairly young, and they've relied on each other to help them get their bearings and figure out what exactly is needed to be a good king and to keep your kingdom in control. So at the time of the beginning of this book, King Emeric is the senior king. He's been king since he was 13, and at this point he is nearing 50. So he's been king for decades, whereas King Edward, his father has recently passed away, and while he was acting king for many years while his father was ill, he has just recently become the actual king, full king, we could say, of Warren. And so he is the more junior of the kings and is still kind of grappling and figuring out how to do things properly, and Emeric is always there to give him help and advice. So let's get into the kingdom of Datten. Now, the kingdom of Datten's motto is honor above all. As I had mentioned previously, I have developed my kingdoms a little bit from a couple of different things. Now, as I've mentioned before, my kingdoms come from 3 different segments of things. So, for the kingdom of Datten, they are actually based on the Klingons, because they really like war. All they do is train guards, and they train guards and knights and military people for all the kingdoms in Warren and Datten, like everybody. They train for all of Torian. They had guards who guard the royal family and everything like that. If you want to be a knight anywhere in Torian, you will train in Datten at some point. They're also based on Prussia when we're talking about history. So, you know, another very heavy war and fighting happy type people. And also they are based on Troy. So, yeah, when we're talking Greek mythology, Kingdom of Troy, like to get into a little bit of mischief as well. So that is what happens in this line. Now, at the end of the novella, or I guess in the prologue of my book, we learn about the family of Datten at the time. So this is King Emeric. When the book is in the prologue part of it, King Emeric is still young. He's fighting the Betrugger. He's a rather fit general, as you would expect. His wife, Queen Ginevra, is exactly what you would expect of the queen of a war general. She is demure, she is beautiful, she is brilliant, and their sons are Crown Prince Daniel and Prince Aaron. Now, when the book starts to take place, as in chapter 1 hits, we mentioned previously for the history of Torian that when Alex is spirited away, Datten loses their crown prince. So there is an accident where Prince Daniel is killed and Alex vanishes into the dark forest and stays there for the next 12 years before she's finally found and brought home. So at that time, Prince Daniel dies, leaving Prince Aaron as the sole heir of the kingdom of Datten and thrusting him into the position of crown prince, which as an 8-year-old boy, he had never expected to be. He always expected to be the other, or the spare to the heir, and never actually having to rule. So it was a big change in his life when that happened, and he gets thrust into training and having to learn a lot of skills that up until that point was never really taught to him, because there was no need. Daniel was clearly going to be the king, and Aaron was just the backup. So the day that he stops being the backup and becomes the crown prince is a big change for his life. So in the story, we have a little bit of a different Datten than what was in the prologue. At that point, losing Daniel has devastated the kingdom. The king and queen are not the king and queen they were originally. King Emeric is not fighting the Betrugger so much anymore. They're more on defensive rather than being offensive and going after them as much. They're simply trying to still recover 12 years after having lost their crown prince. So at the start of the book, Aaron is simply trying to prove himself worthy to his father and make sure that he actually is worthy of the title of Crown Prince and will be able to inherit his father's throne one day. Because at this stage in his life, his father does not believe he actually has it in him to one day be king of the most military savvy kingdom in the entire world of Torian. So his entire goal in life is to prove himself worthy, and that is where we meet Aaron when the book starts. So I hope you learned a little bit about the Kingdom of Datten. They are a lot of fun. They're a little bit more military savvy and a little bit more serious on the overall part, but Aaron himself is not quite as serious, which is some of the things that end up getting him into trouble a little bit. But he's also not afraid to speak his mind and argue and disagree with somebody when they seem to think that war is the only way of solving things. So welcome to the Kingdom of Datten. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do, because I wouldn't want you to miss out on next week when we talk about the Betrooker. Bye now.